Welcome to The Explainer. We're going to jump right into something that I think trips up, well, pretty much everyone. Why is it that saving that first chunk of money, that first little bit, feels just almost impossible? Let's get into it. Okay, let's just be real for a second, right? How many times has this happened to you? You work so hard. You finally get that balance to $1,000, and you feel like you've made it. And then, poof, it's just gone. Maybe it's a car repair. Maybe a surprise bill comes in. Or, hey, maybe you just feel like, you know what? I deserve a treat. And suddenly, you're right back at square one. It's like you're running on this financial treadmill and just not getting anywhere. And the worst part is, while you're stuck in that loop, you look around, right? You see people with $20,000, $50,000, even $100,000 saved up, and you just think, how? How is that even possible? It really feels like they know some secret that you don't, or that you're just fundamentally doing it wrong. But I'm telling you, the answer is way simpler than that. And it all starts by busting a couple of really common myths. So, let's get into the biggest myth of them all. This is the one we all tell ourselves. If I just got a raise, if I just had a better paying job, all my money problems would just magically vanish. Yeah, this quote it hits the nail on the head. You think a raise is the answer, but a bigger paycheck doesn't automatically mean you're going to have bigger savings. Actually, for a lot of people, it just leads to bigger spending. And it's all because of this one very common psychological habit. And that habit, it's called lifestyle creep. And man, is it sneaky. It's this subtle, almost invisible thing that happens. You get a raise, so you think, hey, I can afford a nicer apartment now. You get a bonus, and suddenly you're eating out a couple more times a week. Each one of those little decisions feels totally reasonable on its own, but when you add them all up, your spending just expands to eat up your new income, and you're left with basically nothing. And this right here, this is the results. It seriously doesn't matter if you're making $40K or $100K a year. If your lifestyle just inflates to match whatever you bring in, you end up in the exact same spot. You're still struggling to save that last $500 at the end of the month. All right, so if making more money isn't the silver bullet, what about hitting that first big goal? This brings us right to myth number 2, the belief that if you can just get to that first $1,000, it'll break the cycle for good. Now, don't get me wrong, saving your first $1,000 is a huge deal. You should absolutely be proud of that. But here's the thing, our brains are kind of weird. They play this little trick on us once we hit that number. We stop seeing it as our new starting point, our new zero, and we start seeing it as, well, something else entirely. And here's the trap, laid out step by step. It's called the reset cycle. So you finally save that $1,000, and then your brain just relabels it. It's not savings anymore. It's extra money. And what do you do with extra money? You spend it on a deserved treat. And boom, just like that, you're right back at zero. And listen, this isn't a failure of willpower. It's just a weird little psychological glitch. Okay, so let's recap. If it's not about how much money you make, and if hitting that first goal can actually be a trap, then what is really going on? Why does it feel so incredibly difficult to just get some initial momentum going? Okay, this right here is the most important thing I want you to hear today. If you are struggling with this, it does not mean you're failing. It doesn't mean you're bad with money. It just means you're at the very beginning of the journey, which happens to be the hardest part for absolutely everyone. Seriously, let that sink in for a minute. This one idea changes everything. It's not just you. The truth is that first $5,000 is the hardest money you will ever save in your entire life. It takes the most effort, the most discipline. You're literally fighting an uphill battle against all your old habits, and you're starting from scratch. And this chart, it shows you exactly what I'm talking about. Look at that first bar, the perceived difficulty of saving from 0 to 5K. It's like a 90 out of 100. It feels almost impossible. But then something amazing happens. Look at the next jump to 20,000. The difficulty gets cut in half. And then to 50,000, it gets even easier. And you know why? Because by then, you've built the habits. You've got momentum on your side. And your money is finally starting to work for you. Which brings us to the real solution. And look, it's not some fancy new budgeting app. It's not a secret stock tip. The real key here is a fundamental shift in how you think about this whole process. Those people we talked about before, the ones with tens of thousands saved up, the reason they got there probably wasn't because they're geniuses or because they have a massive salary. It's because they fought through that first absolutely brutal battle of getting away from zero. and they won.
And this is what changes the whole game. It's all about understanding the psychology of what you're up against. When you know about the reset cycle, you can protect that first $1,000. When you recognize lifestyle creep, you can be deliberate about what you do with a raise. And when you accept that this first hurdle is the highest one, you can give yourself a break and just keep going. You stop blaming yourself for struggling and you start building a real strategy.
And really, that's the big takeaway here. You've basically been playing a game without knowing all the rules. Lifestyle creep, the reset cycle, they're just traps designed to keep you stuck at square one. But now you see them. And once you can see the trap, it's a whole lot easier to just walk around it.
So I'm going to leave you with this question. The challenge was never about your income. It was never about your willpower. The real challenge was always just that first incredibly steep part of the climb. So now that you know that, now that you understand the psychological traps that are waiting for you, how are you going to play the game differently?